Good morning, Math 095. We're going to start out by going over section 1.1, which is our first section in this class. And section 1.1 is notations and symbols. And remember, this is just a brief review. So the main thing is we're going to go over two parts, or two actual not parts. Let me turn my autofocus off. The first one being equalities, and the second one being inequalities. Equalities are what we're trying to solve, and that will make up probably 98% of what we do. The other 2% will probably be for inequalities, but equalities are x is equal to a number. In this case, I'm just going to put 3. An inequality is a is less than b, or a is greater than b, those being representing numbers. Remember, any letter is just a variable. Of course, all that is a letter that represents a number. Or sometimes it could represent a couple of numbers, but mainly a number. So if your sign is pointing to the left, then that means that A is less than B. If your sign is pointing to the right, then that means that A is more than B. Like I said, we won't focus a ton on that. Mostly we will be focused just on our equalities. You will see x's normally will be our variables. They don't always have to be. Sometimes it's easier just to let them represent what they are. For example, a length would be an L, a width would be a W, but for most of ours, we'll use x's and y's. Now, main thing to remember is when we do multiplication, or anytime we multiply, for this class, it will be represented as a star, not by an X. And the reason that I do that is so I don't want it to look funny to you. If I just put X, 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 you're not sure what to do with that. So by putting the stars in between, you can see that we're multiplying X, X times X times X, which we'll get to later on, which will be X to the third power. Anytime also that you see two things or any two parentheses side by side, it's telling you to multiply. In this case, A, two parentheses, B, the same thing as A and B. I can substitute these in with numbers, same thing. This is telling you that this is the same thing as 3 times 4, which would be equal to 12. Now, because we don't use a calculator in this class, obviously we're going to keep our numbers somewhat low. So the next part that we're going to go over is going to be the law of exponents. And there are a lot of laws of exponents, but we're just going to cover the basics right now, and later on in the class we'll kind of go over some of the other ones. But the first one is any variable or number to the first power is always itself. So x to the first power is equal to x. I can substitute that in by saying 3 to the first power is the same thing as the number, which is 3. Now in these cases, the x would be your base. In this case, the 3 would be your base. And then this would be your exponent. So in this top one, that means that 1 would be your exponent. And of course, in the bottom one, the 1 is your exponent as well. So if I just use something different and said x to the third power, then in this case, once again, it would mean that x is my base. And that 3 would be my exponent. If I substitute this in with numbers and say 3 to the fourth power, in this case, it's just telling me that 3 is equal to my base. But this time 4 is equal to my exponent. Now, if I work this out, basically that's telling you that that's 3 times 3 times 3. So it's telling you that you multiply 3 4 times. So if I group these together, I'm just going to do it with parentheses to make it easier to see. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 9 is just going to give me 81. Now, there are two problems that you're going to see in this class over and over. And as a matter of fact, they're going to be on every exam. One is going to be the area, and the other is going to be the perimeter. The formula for the area is length times width. So if we just use a standard piece of paper, and we'll say that it's 8 by 11, it's just the length times the width. It doesn't matter which one you pick as length and which one you pick as width. So for this case, I'm going to say that 8 is my length and that 11 is my width. Then, because these are just variables, I'm going to substitute. 8 times 11, and 8 times 11 would just give me 88. The next formula is the perimeter. It is 2 times length plus 2 times width. I'm going to use the same standard sheet of paper, and then I'm just going to substitute them in. That is 2 times 8 plus 2 times 11. I'll work this out. That is going to give me 16 plus 22, which leaves me with a final answer of 38. Generally, your area will always be the bigger number. It doesn't always happen that way, but for the most part, it will. Next thing we're going to cover is PEMDAS. And everybody should remember that. First one is just parentheses, and this is just the order in which you solve math problems. Next one is exponents. And the next two are the same thing basically. They're just reverse of each other, which is multiplication and division. So we kind of group those together. The last two are grouped together as well. They are addition and subtraction. Now, because these two are the same, but they also give you different answers, you always work out all problems left to right only with multiplication. But you also follow PEMDAS. So if I see something that says 3, and this will be 4 minus 2, plus 8, 3 plus 1, minus 4 divided by 2. I'm still going to follow PEMDAS no matter what. Let me get the 2 back on. So I'm still going to follow PEMDAS. I'm going to do what's in parentheses first. So I'm going to just rewrite the problem. And this is why I encourage you to show your work. I'm going to do what's in the parentheses first. So 4 minus 2 is 2. 3 plus 1 is 4. And then I can do multiplication and division. Now, I'd work them left to right because it's important, and that's the way you read, so that's the way you work out math problems. 3 times 2 is 6. 8 times 4 is 32. And then when I get to this part, then I'm going to do my division. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then I'm going to just keep working left to right with addition and subtraction. 6 plus 32 is 38. 38 minus 2 is just going to give me 36. And those are the type of problems we're going to kind of do at the beginning of this chapter. The last thing that I will cover are sequences. And we'll kind of go over those a little bit later. This is just kind of a refresher. If you remember in most of your standardized tests, you'll see something that looks like this, 1, 4, 7. And then they want to know what the next number is. So basically, this is just called a arithmetic sequence, and there are 4 different kinds, but we're really only going to focus on 2. How do I get from 1 to 4? I add 3. How do I get from 4 to 7? I add 3. So at that point, I see my pattern is adding 3. So for the last number, I just add 3 again. 7 plus 3 would give me 10.